So we will call to order this evening's meeting of the Burlington City Council. The date is January 12th, 2026. The time is 6:15 p.m. The first item on our agenda, and I will note, we have, I can't see on the screen, but I do believe we are joined by Councilors McKnight and Litwin, at least, on Zoom. Do we see them online? Lori? Okay. And just to make sure that our Zoom is operating, Councilor McKnight or Litwin, sorry, I can't see if any other councilors are online at the moment, but can you indicate that you can hear us on Zoom?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, great. Thank you for that. So the first item on our agenda is a motion to adopt our agenda as amended. And Councilor Singh, could I ask you for a motion on that item?
I'd like to make a motion to adopt and amend the agenda as follows. Remove from the consent agenda item 5.21 FY26 Modern Gov Initiatives Updates. Mayor, remove from the deliberative agenda item 6.6 authorized to execute contract with Interface Studios for Plan BTV 2050 planning, and also remove from the agenda item 5.9, which is, oh, that's it? That's it.
Okay. Is there a second to that motion?
Second.
Okay. Thank you, Councilor Schachter. We will then go to a vote on whether to adopt our agenda as amended. All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? That carries unanimously. The next item on our agenda is an anticipated executive session. City Attorney Brown, it is our practice to ask your office to please provide a bit of factual context as to why the council is required to go into executive session.
Certainly. Thank you, Council President Travers. Vermont's open meeting law does allow for executive sessions under certain specified circumstances. Those are set forth in Civic Clerk. This matter is specifically for the Burlington Electric Department to provide the council an update on a Public Utilities Commission audit, including attorney-client privilege advice.
Thank you, City Attorney Brown. The proposed motion on this item is a two-part motion. Councilor Singh, could I turn to you for a motion on the first item?
To make a specific finding that premature general public knowledge of confidential audit response strategy would clearly place the city at a substantial disadvantage by discussing privileged matters, including attorney work product in public, and second part of the motion, to move into executive session based upon the foregoing.
We'll just do the first motion first.
Okay.
Yep. Is there a second to that first motion? Second. Thank you, Councilor Bergman. Is there any discussion on that item? We'll go to a vote then. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? That is unanimous. And now, Councilor Singh, could I turn to you for the second part of the motion?
Yes, to move into executive session based upon the foregoing specific findings pursuant to 1 VSA 313A1E and A1F to confer with BED General Manager Darren Springer regarding the pending PUC audit of BED, to include the members of the City Council, the Mayor and her staff, the City Attorney and her staff, and the Chief Administrative Officer and her staff.
Thank you, Councilor Singh. Is there a second to that motion?
Second.
Thank you, Councilor Schachter. Any discussion on that motion? We will go to a vote then. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? That carries unanimously. So the council is now in executive session. We will go to the conference room downstairs so folks can stay here. We do have public forum set for a time certain of 6:30 p.m. I anticipate that this executive session, unfortunately, will go perhaps a few minutes beyond that, but we will do our best to get back as close to 6:30 as possible. And that's because our Board of Finance meeting ran a bit past 6 o'clock. So thanks for folks' patience, and we'll be back as soon as we reasonably can. Thank you. So a couple councilors are still making their way, bring us on Zoom. We had scheduled public forum for a time certain of 6:30, but again, our Board of Finance and executive sessions ran a bit over, so appreciate, again, folks' patience. We will go ahead and open public forum now at 6:38 p.m. As is our practice, we will first turn to Burlington residents who are here in City Hall. At the moment, we only have Burlington residents signed up. We would then turn online to Burlington residents online. We then repeat that process for any non-Burlington residents. I will also note that tonight on our agenda, we do have 2 public hearings that are scheduled, one on our open space plan and a second on technical amendments to our comprehensive development ordinance. You can certainly speak at public forum now on either of those items, but would ask you to sign up with one of these forms. If you are here for those public hearings, which we'll turn to on our deliberative agenda, we will open the floor generally for anyone to speak in either one of those public hearings. If you're here in person, when I call your name, please come here to the table, pull the microphone close, make sure the microphone is on, the green light will be illuminated. Folks will be provided 2 minutes, same online. If you're online, I will let you know once you've been promoted such that you can unmute yourself, and folks online will be provided 2 minutes as well. When you're providing comments, please direct them to me as the chair and not to any other individual. It's important that City Hall remain a safe space for those who serve, those in attendance, and those tuning in online. We will not tolerate any personal attacks, particularly those based on any individual's protected characteristics. We also ask that public comments please refrain from obscenities, vulgarities, and increased volume. If anyone's public comment is not put forward in accordance with these rules, and I have to interrupt a speaker, it will be to ask that they please continue in accordance with these rules. If a speaker continues to violate the rules, I reserve the right to end public comment at that point in time. So with that, we will start with Burlington residents. The first Burlington resident we have signed up is Michael Monty, who will be followed by Scott Lowe, and then Ari Moskowitz.
There's a button. There you go. Hi. Good evening. Michael Monty here, speaking not only as a Burlington resident, but as the CEO of Champlain Housing Trust. And I'm here on behalf of Cathedral Square and Champlain Housing Trust and Evernorth regarding the Transportation Demand Management Ordinance, which is something that we've been struggling with lately. We had a recent DRB decision made on 12/16, which denied a request to amend the TDM plan for Cambrian Rise to exempt the affordable housing at Cambrian Rise from most of the TDM standards. And as a result, it has impacted us. So we're going to be, the reason for the denial was that the affordable housing that we own, manage, and are constructing currently are part of a larger PUD and were required by inclusionary zoning. We're going to be going to the Ordinance Committee. We've had conversations with the Councilor Bergman about going to the Ordinance Committee, seeking a revision that clarifies that all affordable housing should be exempt. We are still willing to comply with the TDM ordinance as we do now, as is in the ordinance in terms of outreach and education and reporting on this issue. But the cost of actually implementing the full TDM plan as required can be prohibitive. Our residents need our support. The support that is truly needed is access to food, access to support for paying their rent, access to mental health services, access to affordable health care of all kinds. At a time when we're experiencing significant increases in insurance, taxes, maintenance cost, and also just providing these services directly to the individual families in our buildings. We really want to focus on addressing these needs. So we cannot afford more requirements laying on to our operations, and we'll be coming to the Ordinance Committee to seek TDM technical amendments to the ordinance. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Michael. Our next speaker is Scott Lowe, who will be followed by Ari Moskowitz.
Thank you. The first thing I'd like to speak about is the memorandum from the Burlington Public Works. They're asking because of a shortfall of $16.6 million. Now, this city just doesn't have it, and this segues into my next topic. The mayor's memo that was put out is full of pipe dreams and smoke rings. The city does not have the money whatsoever. We're in a bigger deficit than we were a fiscal year ago. And we need to look at where the spending is going. We don't need to look at raising taxes, shifting tax burdens from homesteaders to renters. That's just ridiculous. If you don't have the money, you can't pay for it. It's that simple. We are in the red. We were in the red last fiscal year. We're even further in the red this fiscal year. We don't have the money. If you don't have the money, you can't pay for it. You can't ask the people to pay more and expect them to be able to be graciously handing it over. Shifting money and tax burdens around to the majority of the population of the city and making them pay for it is just not the way to go. And I am appalled that this is even being considered, and ask for it to be re-examined. I've already run the numbers. The numbers don't add up. They don't match. And that's what's going to happen. This city is going to bleed out. Thank you.
Thank you. Our last Burlington resident here in City Hall is Ari Moskowitz. We then have 2 Burlington residents signed up online. Our next speaker after Ari will be Sharon Busher and then Evan Gould. Ari, go ahead.
Hi, members of the Burlington City Council. My name is Ari Moskowitz. I am here because the mayor's office has refused to answer a basic and serious question, and I'm asking this council to formally investigate. In April, during Holocaust Memorial Day, a City Hall security guard sent me anti-Semitic and threatening messages. It was hate speech and intimidation by someone contracted to protect City Hall. What followed is just as disturbing. I submitted multiple handwritten complaints to the mayor's office and testified publicly before this council, yet Chocolate Thunder Security was never notified by the city. Not immediately, not months later. The company only learned of it because I personally contacted them, and later because I happened to run into the owner. This is not a communication breakdown. This is a total failure, and there needs to be accountability. Councilor Ben Travers has asked the mayor's office to explain why the security company was never contacted, and there was never a response. So today, I'm begging, and I'm asking City Council to ask. I respectfully request a formal council investigation into why my complaints were not acted on, who decided not to notify the contractor, and whether City Hall has adequate procedures when residents report hate and threats by city personnel. This is about equal protection and public safety. As Jewish residents, as immigrants, and as members of the LGBTQ community, we all deserve the same protection as everyone else. Thank you.
Thank you. We will now turn to Burlington residents who are online. As mentioned, the first Burlington resident online is Sharon Busher, who will be followed by Evan Gould. If we could please promote Sharon. And Sharon, if you could give me a moment just to share my screen here with the timer. All right, you should be able to go ahead and unmute yourself now, Sharon.
Yes, I'm unmuted. Thank you very much, President Travers. I wanted to speak to an item that was removed from the agenda in another I can't remember, it was on consent, but this has to do with Modern Gov, and the memo is now under the mayor's communication to the council. And I wanted to say that I appreciated the overview of where we are with Modern Gov, and the fact that there is going to be some collaboration with UVM to evaluate whether or not these mergers are effective and are accomplishing the goals. I'm not sure I always understand the goals, but I'm speaking to say that I am not in support of having the planning department come under the CEDO department. I do feel that for a number of reasons. One is I feel that CEDO just reformed. It hasn't even had a year to kind of settle in, and there's been no evaluation. And I feel it's premature to then add more departments under CEDO before we understand if bringing it back together has been an effective method. The second piece is that planning is supposed to be planning for the city. RCO, recreation, conservation, open space, industrial use, commercial use, rental use, and housing. Um, I'm fearful that CEDO is really the Community and Economic Development Office, and I'm very concerned that this proposal now just really makes it even easier for developers to accomplish goals. And I think it puts the property owner at a disadvantage, encourages sale of single family homes to be bought up by developers. And my timer has stopped, so I don't know where I am, President Travers. I so apologize, but I just am very concerned that this proposal is premature, and I wish that the council and the mayor's office would pause it until you know how the current merger is effective before you bring in another department. My last statement is that this.
Briefly. I think that something went wrong with the timer, but if you could just wrap
Okay.
up briefly, thank you.
Yes, certainly. I just wanted to say that this modern gov proposal, bringing planning and CEDO together, is consistent with what you have done, what happened with Plan BTV, and how all departments are going to work effectively together. And that is a very cohesive and wonderful plan. I'm not sure this structure accomplishes that. Thank you.
And apologies for the timer getting frozen there on the screen. Our last Burlington resident here is Evan Gould. If we could promote Evan. And then the only non-Burlington resident we had signed up for public forum is Karen Sita online. So if Karen is online, she will follow Evan. Evan Gould, have we promoted
Can you hear
Evan?
me okay?
Yes, yes. Go ahead, Evan.
Okay, perfect. So two things. Initially, I was just going to speak on the build resolution and voice my support for it. I think it feels like we haven't really made any additional kind of like big steps or plans with regard to housing since the neighborhood code passed. And I also don't think we've seen the uptake that a lot of us thought would happen with it. So looking at the barriers and permitting process and ways of smoothing out that transition, having seen some of the projects that are trying to get done under it but have not been able to, I think this resolution looks good, and so I'm hopeful that it'll get unanimous support. The second thing is what Michael Monty brought up. I think the spirit of the current ordinance in providing relief from TDM for housing that is affordable, and the fact that it doesn't apply to inclusionary zoned units as either as part of a larger project or just in a building in general, don't align. And so I'm hopeful that the ordinance committee comes up with a good plan and a good way of amending that to really support what is a necessary service in our city and kind of lighten the load of regulatory framework in the spirit of the resolution in bringing more affordable housing online. And that's all. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Evan. Evan was our last Burlington resident signed up for public forum. We have one non-Burlington resident signed up for public forum, and that's Karen Sita. Karen, I do not see you online as an attendee on Zoom. If you're here under a different name, if you could please use the raise hand function. All right, not seeing anyone raising their hand online, we will go ahead and close public forum at 6:52 p.m. That now brings us to the third item on our agenda, which I've lost my agenda, Mayor, but I believe it's you, if I'm not mistaken, if I remember correctly. Mayor, the third item on the agenda is Mayor, General City Affairs, so we'll turn the floor to you as I pull my agenda back up here.
Thank you, Council President Travers. It's item number 4 tonight. Maybe that's why you're not remembering, because we had an executive session. Well, thank you very much. I want to wish everyone Happy New Year as we enter 2026. And as I said on New Year's Eve at the Highlight Festivals, it was an interesting 2025, and I hope that we, as an entire community, a state, and the country, frankly, a world, can really move towards a healthier and safer community for everyone. And I open with that because I want to make sure that I do start on a serious and somber note before I get into more city updates, because I do want to take a moment to acknowledge what happened in Minneapolis in the last couple of days here, and to offer my condolences on behalf of the city of Burlington to the family and friends of Renee Nicole Good. There was a shooting and a murder of her at the hands of ICE in that city that is really under siege, as are many areas of this country. And I just want to start with that acknowledgement, because this is right happening in local communities, and it is a hard time to be navigating, and most importantly, offering deep solidarity to our immigrant and refugee community members, especially here in Burlington. It is a scary and uncertain time, and there are a lot of fears being expressed when I meet with members of our immigrant and refugee communities, and I want to make sure that folks know we are doing everything we can here in Burlington to keep people safe and to track these issues and do what we can within the powers of municipal government. But these are not normal times, and there's great uncertainty and fear, and I want to start by acknowledging that. Moving on, I wanted to invite everyone to a press conference. My monthly press conferences are now moving to more general city affairs beyond community safety, although we have always lots to say on community safety. We're dedicating this month's press conference to housing, though. On Wednesday, January 14th, it'll be at 10:30. Our friends at Town Meeting TV will be streaming this and recording it in case folks aren't able to be there, but it'll be here at City Hall in the Sharon Busher Conference Room. This is a very important press conference. It's something we've been working towards for the last several months, in fact, because housing and making sure there's ample affordable housing has been a priority of my administration since day one. We've been very focused on community safety for all the obvious reasons in the first real year and a half here, but we've also been hard at work to engage stakeholders and start developing an affordable housing strategy. So we'll be unveiling a 3-pronged strategy on Wednesday that will unleash our affordable and equitable housing development work here in the city that is building on Burlington's legacy of really being a pioneer over these last 40 years, but now accelerating that with a public-driven affordable housing development mindset. I'll give you a little teaser for these 3 buckets and then how we've been sort of getting ready for this as a city. Those 3 buckets are, and you can come hear more details under each of these headers, but the first, to modernize our inclusionary zoning ordinance, as well as how we leverage and use our housing trust fund. These have been, and they were really the premier cutting edge concepts, and still members of our staff, when they go to conferences across the country, people know Burlington because this put us on the map 40 years ago, and there's a lot of review and updating to respond to the current modern day realities of our housing market, that it's timely for us to dive in and find ways to modernize, looking at other cities who have been able to activate their own inclusionary zoning in different ways that actually end, at the end of the day, with more affordable housing units being actually built. The second bucket is to unlock the potential of our neighborhood code. This was a piece of ordinance, a rewrite that was enacted by the council within a few days, really, of me becoming mayor. There was not an implementation plan ready to hand off, and so we are looking at how to unlock the potential of this important ordinance update, as well as other ordinance updates that have happened related to housing. I like to call this the democratizing element bucket, so that we really allow individuals, small developers, and others who have not really been the focal point of the city's partnership to really activate what has great potential for infill development throughout the city that meets not only our housing needs and goals set by the state and by ourselves, but also climate and intentionality around quality of life and livability for the city. The third bucket will be on our public, emphasis on public being first, private partnership expansions, and also strategic use of public land. The city has done a lot of partnerships in years past. We are seeing the outgrowth of that in either updates to council and or things that are coming online. And there's more we can be doing with additional partners and to be expansive in our thinking of how to leverage our public assets as a community and build the wealth of our public, and thinking very carefully, but how do we activate public land as in service to our ultimate goals and needs of developing more housing. We've been hard at work behind the scenes doing things in place that allow us to build out the capacity to develop this framework, as well as now start implementing it. And it began when we started to restructure CEDO. That was part of our Modern Gov work leading into July 1st. Part of that restructure allowed us to staff up in a couple of key areas where we can develop this new approach. So we have some new folks online, and it's really been able to activate some new thinking and some really great new expertise in that department. We also, as folks know, we've been selected as a city to be part of the Bloomberg-Harvard City Leadership Initiative, and that has allowed us to engage many stakeholders who experience our housing system as it is today and test a lot of assumptions. I think we've been a little bit on the status quo of making assumptions around how renters experience Burlington, how homeowners experience, how developers, both nonprofit and for-profit, experience Burlington. And so that has been really a fruitful process with the help, again, of the City Leadership Initiative for us to not only test those assumptions, but then have that inform how do we roll out and implement this housing framework and identify barriers that still remain in the city of Burlington. I'm going to come back to Modern Gov in just a moment, but I just want to emphasize, that we'll be unveiling this three-pronged strategy. There are a couple other elements other departments are still working on related tangentially to housing that we'll also address on Wednesday, and that includes how we are strategically addressing problem properties, distressed properties, vacant properties in the city of Burlington, especially in the downtown core. And also, of course, an update on homelessness and shelter with our community partners, CVOEO. You can't talk about housing without talking about the emergency that we continue to live in and day out of how many folks are unhoused in the streets of Burlington, but also in the state of Vermont. So please come. The next that you'll see on the mayor update, a memo is mentioned in public comment related to Modern Gov. We will come back to the council on January 26th to do a work session. There seem to be a few more questions, and I encourage you to, if you had questions, I'm not sure who did, please send them ahead of time so we can make sure we have the right staff here to answer what themes you would like to explore. This Modern Gov memo was our summary of the work that we completed in the first few months of fiscal year 26 for some very modest changes within the structures of government. Again, Modern Gov initiative is to really make a more effective and modern government, to be responsive to the things we're trying to do as a city. The two things highlighted in this work this fall focused on our community health assessment work. This was the last large piece of work that Ingrid Jonas, my advisor on senior advisor on community safety, did for the city. It resulted in a review, which we came to council in December about, with a change in the BTV CARES program because the grant ended, as well as looking at other aspects of the city's side, as well as community partner side of community health. There's a summary in this memo that is still posted under my item here on the agenda. The second big piece that Modern Gov focused on is the Office of City Planning and where best to pilot moving that for further activation of the three staff that are in this very tiny department. That was intentionally thought through by CEDO and the Office of City Planning for the synergy that is already happening across these two departments. So again, back to how do we activate and build out a housing strategy that we can implement. I want to remind Burlingtonians that the Department of Permitting and Inspections, which is really the regulatory arm of the city, is a separate department. That is what does our zoning and our permitting, et cetera. So in terms of everything being too mushed together, barely technical term there, there is a separation, and really this is about activation, the planning, the visioning, especially as we move forward with the comprehensive plan for this city, which is the visioning work for the next 10 to 20 years. This is a pilot worthy of the city trying on and evaluating. And then speaking of evaluation, at the very end of this memo, if you get to the end of the memo, you'll see I appreciate the University of Vermont. They will be partnering with the city this spring semester to evaluate our Modern Gov work from year one. As you might recall, this is the Department of Finance Administration, the creation of that. We merged 4 departments into one for these services that are truly the core of city government, as well as the merger of the Business Workforce Development Office with CEDO for sort of CEDO 2.0. That class will help us do an analysis. How did that go? This would be the end of the first year pilot, so we can really be reflective of what were our assumptions going in and where are things we can still learn and adapt around. So I'm really, again, glad for this partnership with UVM. They were eager to help and to be able to work with some seniors at UVM for this analysis. Moving on to our fiscal year 27 budget, we held a well-attended budget webinar for all city staff in mid-December. We've really moved a lot of this budgeting process even earlier than in last year because we have another challenging year ahead of us. As we reported in December, we are projecting between a $10 to $12 million budget gap. We want to make sure staff are engaged early, that unions are engaged early, that city council is also engaged even earlier than in years past because this is another hard cycle. I've already directed my department heads to present 2 scenarios, a 5% and 10% budget reduction. We indicated this at Board of Finance presentations in December. These are very hard discussions to be had, but we need to continue to right-size a sustainable budget that is affordable for Burlingtonians. And this is really hard work, but we're trying to do this as transparently and as collaboratively as possible with the council and impacted folks, of course. So as a result, we've launched city employee surveys to submit not only ideas on how we can close the budget gap, but also ways that employees can engage with some creative new things the city has not tried before, including voluntary furlough program. We did look at early retirement. The city will lose money on that, so that is not an idea we can move forward. But there's been dozens of ideas brought forward by city staff that we are vetting everything that has something that's feasible and worthwhile for this for work ahead. We presented this evening at Board of Finance the latest high-level summary of specific solutions to that budget gap, along with estimations. I want to emphasize these are just estimates at this point around the savings, the dollar amount associated with each. I encourage members of the public to take a look at that. And as we get into the next 2 to 3 weeks, we'll do another update that gets a little bit more into the details. Town meeting day, believe it or not, is very near, and there's going to be a lot of public engagement coming your way in the weeks ahead that once approved by City Council, a final set of ballot items for the public to consider. Right now, the Council has approved an REIB charter change question for voters, and we have a couple more financial questions and an advisory question still being deliberated by this body. But once we finalize those pieces, you'll see my office doing a roadshow with the MPAs starting this week into February. There'll be voter materials, a website, and additional information that we did last year. As you remember from the bond work we did, we really want to make sure voters have all the information they need to know what is being asked of them to support support the city, especially when it comes to any financial questions. And moving on, my administration is working, because the legislature is back in session, to advance our legislative agenda. The council unanimously updated our legislative priorities. I can't even remember what month that was in. Maybe November, maybe December. We were ready for January, though. And we also facilitated a joint Winooski-Burlington joint legislative delegation meeting the state reps and the senators who represent both Winooski and Burlington met together to coordinate our strategies. This has been a past practice under Mayor Weinberger, and I've continued it as mayor. And just last week, we've already been to the State House. I participated in a gun safety press conference calling on the Vermont House to advance S-131, which has already been through the Senate. That is our charter change, which voters overwhelmingly supported a second time to prohibit guns in establishments that serve alcohol. And we stood along with a lot of wonderful allies, including Moms Demand Action, Students Demand Action, and Gun Sense Vermont. was joined by a couple of you, which I appreciated. Council President Travers was there. Councilors Jean Bergman and Merrick Broderick were there. I know others would have been there if you were able to, as well as some of our Burlington delegation. That item is currently in the House Government Operations Committee, and we hope that it gets put up for a vote, of course, and please contact your legislators to help us advance that. Couple just final administration updates from our team. Our Burlington Electric Department received more good financial news, and I think this is worth mentioning because the city itself on the general operations side received affirmative Moody's ratings, BED's credit rating increased in the positive direction to an A3 credit rating. The financial scorecard shows improved metrics relative to prior years. This continues to show the city is moving in the right direction, including with one of our public utilities. As you might recall, the water also received an increased positive rating when the city's general operations were also reviewed by Moody's last month. Over at our airport, they proudly announced they are now participants in the Blue Lighting Initiative. This is a program that is led by the U.S. Department of Homeland Security and the U.S. Department of Transportation that trains aviation personnel to recognize and report suspected incidences of human trafficking. This is an important piece. Our director has really taken the lead of making sure our BTV staff are trained and making sure that we have it in multiple languages and in multiple ways for people to be able to know this airport is participating in that important program. Just want to also do a few shout outs, CEDO and BCA, so Community Economic Development Office, through our Church Street Marketplace, as well as Burlington City Arts, have been doing a lot of incredible work throughout December and the holiday season to bring festivities and brightness into the downtown. This team really works collaboratively together to really push a lot of positivity around the holidays and making sure people have extra reason to come downtown. That's a big lift by our city team. And I want to especially thank folks for a successful highlight New Year's Eve activity, as well as all the various events Church Street did between window showcases and participation and drawing people into the downtown to support our local businesses. I saw a few media reports around just increased participation and activity of people coming downtown. We need more of that, and all of you are the best ambassadors for just encouraging not only through your own shopping behaviors, but friends and others to come into the downtown and to show up for especially our local businesses. I really want to offer gratitude to the library because on Christmas Day, you might recall it was a very cold night, and they opened that day and that afternoon so people could take away meals in residence. And that brings me to also another appreciation to CBOEO as well as city staff who ran 3 different emergency cold weather shelters on 2 holiday nights, Christmas Day evening as well as New Year's Day evening, and a third one when temperatures dropped below -10 degrees. That's no easy lift on a holiday, and I really appreciate CBOEO. They are the lead on operations this winter, unlike last winter when we took the lead as a city. The shelter saw between 40 to 50 guests each time, and I really want to appreciate this is not easy to flip and turn around this important life-saving shelter that we're able to do in partnership. And finally, it's been icy. DPW doesn't get a lot of shout outs for their endless work to make sure our sidewalks and our streets are plowed and easier to navigate, although Burlington felt like it was a permanent ice rink at times. They were hard at work on a lot of overtime hours to make sure our city was safe to navigate. Finally, out in the community, I want to note just a couple of quick things. We launched the first City Circle in January. So volunteers who have been putting their hands up to get trained with our Community Justice Center launched the first circle this month, and the first ticket was issued. These are the municipal tickets, and this is the city-run accountability system. And so we'll have more to report back soon, but I'm very excited that this crucial new initiative is now implemented and on its way, and I thank the council for the partnership of updating our ordinances in order to bring something online that's within the city's authority to do and outside of the court system, unless again, people don't participate, and then it will go into the court system. Another shout out to Town Meeting TV. There's 2 mayor shows that we've recorded in the last month that folks can find on their useful YouTube page, including an interview with our wonderful new REIB director, Dr. Kelly Perkins, on the REIB charter change question. And then just last week, I interviewed DPI Director Bill Ward on the work we've been underway with problematic properties and some new approaches we're taking, as well as vacant buildings and how code enforcement works. Finally, mayor meetups are up and running again. We took a couple off during the holidays that fell on holidays dates, but there'll be 4 this month, including 1 tomorrow at the Central District meetup that is fully virtual, and you can sign up by registering online through the mayor's website. That is tomorrow at 5:30 via Zoom. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mayor. And yes, that was the 4th item on our agenda. The 5th item will be our consent agenda, but we had warned our meeting as a local control commission for a time certain of 7 p.m. So given that it's 7:12 now, we'll briefly recess the regular city council meeting, and we will call to order our local control commission meeting at 7:13 p.m. And for a motion on our local control commission agenda, I'll turn to the chair of our license committee, Commissioner Broderick.
Thank you. I would move to adopt the agenda as indicated on Civic Clerk.
Thank you. Is there a second to that?
Second.
Thank you, Commissioner Grant. All in favor of that motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That carries unanimously. I believe we only have a consent agenda on for this evening's local control commission, and so Commissioner Broderick, may I turn to you for a motion on our consent agenda?
I move to adopt the consent agenda and take the actions indicated.
Thank you. Is there a second to that motion?
Second.
Thank you, Commissioner Schachter. Is there any discussion on that motion? All right, seeing none, we will go to a vote. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Are any opposed? That carries unanimously. Seeing no other business before the local control commission, absent objection, we will adjourn that meeting at 7:14 p.m. and now resume our regular city council meeting. As mentioned, the next item on our consent agenda, on our agenda is the consent agenda. Is there a motion to adopt the consent agenda as amended?
So moved.
Thank you, Councillor Singh. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Councillor Grant. Any discussion on that motion? All right, seeing none, we will go to a vote. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Are any opposed? That carries unanimously, which now brings us to our deliberative agenda. And Mayor, the first item on our deliberative agenda is the appointment of the Director of Human Resources. And I will turn to you for an introduction on this item.
Great, thank you very much. Lynn Reagan, would you join the big table, please? Thank you. So this evening, councilors, I am very pleased to bring forward the appointment of Lynn Reagan to the permanent position of our Director of Human Resources for the City of Burlington. I want to just say a few words about Lynn, and then obviously if there's any questions or comments, we invite that, of course, on as per the process here with the confirmation process. Lynn, I'm going to make a plaque, was my longest serving interim department head, and that's no small task because we had a lot of transitions, as usually does happen in a new administration. She has served well in this role of interim director of HR since July of 2024. She's been steady, she's been confident, she's provided direction not only to her team at the HR department, but also to city employees, myself, and my administration. And this is no small measure considering how much the city has gone through regarding needing support our city employees as well as leadership in the city. She has been very consistent, which is one of the most important things one would need to look for in a human resources leader, because that's very important so people can be, people not only can be effective, but there can be trust built and relationships, which I'm sure any human resources personnel will tell you is the fundamental, should be the fundamental of any good employer. She has overseen some really complex daily operations, but some really complex challenges for the city. I know we all know well that how difficult it was building last year's budget and navigating some very difficult staff layoffs. That is no easy undertaking for any leader, and I appreciated her counsel, her care for city employees, the learning mindset that we all tried to hold throughout that entire process, and then moved right into police and fire bargaining and contract negotiations. And as a mayor who really prides herself in being a labor-forward mayor, from my own personal history with labor, the labor movement, I really gave that task to Lynn, saying a mindset of understanding the importance of fair bargaining, making sure that we're navigating the interests of the city as management, of course, but also being very fair to our employees and a fair process to the unions. That's what they deserve at minimum. And she took that to heart and really ran with it. Finally, she's been a tireless mentor to her team in human resources, and I was really pleased to see the unanimous support by her colleagues for her to be elevated permanently into this role. There was another unanimous expression of support from the hiring team that were part of the hiring panel before names were forwarded to me for final selection as the mayor. So, upon your confirmation, Lynn will begin tomorrow as the permanent director of HR. I have full confidence in her leadership, and I'm so pleased she immediately accepted the position. I think that shows great service to the city, and the city will be in very good hands with this appointment. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor, and congratulations, Lynn. I will be momentarily asking Councilor Carpenter, as chair of our HR committee, for a motion on this appointment. But before turning to a motion, are there any councilors that wish to get in the queue and make any comments on this matter? Councilor Schechter?
I just want to pop in and say thank you, Council President. And thank you, Lynn, truly, for the way you've carried our city through a time of big transition, and I really admire your leadership. I think it speaks volumes how much support is behind this nomination tonight. So anyways, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Schechter. Does any other councilor wish to be recognized on this appointment? All right, then Councilor Carpenter, could I turn to you for a motion on the item?
Absolutely. I am very thrilled to move to confirm the appointment of Lynn Reagan to the position of Director of Human Resources for the City of Burlington.
Thank you, Councilor Carpenter. Is there a second to that item? Seconded by Councilor Broderick. Is there any further discussion on the item? Councilor Carpenter?
I don't want to repeat what the mayor said, but I am so pleased Lynn put herself in the running for this position. And I am just so confident of her ability. A lot of folks, Lynn can be very quiet, but she's so thoughtful and so well organized, and the way she runs and puts out her policies. And as chair of the committee, that has been so helpful. And I've seen her interactions with her staff, and we should just all be very grateful that she is willing to serve as our permanent Director of Human Resources. And I'm so glad that we had so much support for her.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Carpenter. And I suppose, Director Reagan, I don't know if there's anything further you wanted to say before we go to a vote on the item. Certainly, you don't have to. You'll no doubt have additional opportunities to come back before the council here, assuming you are appointed, but certainly happy to give the floor to you if you have anything you want to say before we go to a vote.
Sure, thank you. I just want to say that there really isn't anyone more surprised than myself to be seated at this table. And I think the long interim status worked to my advantage, and I quickly learned the value that this mayor and the administration has for the HR department, and that was greatly, greatly appreciated and sometimes missed out on in years past. So that certainly helped in making my decision to put my name in. And I would be remiss if I didn't mention not only the individuals sitting behind me, but the ones that couldn't be here, the team. They're outstanding, and I really couldn't have done it without them. So I just thank them for their support, and of course, the mayor for your support.
Well, thank you again, and thanks as well, echoed to the entire HR team. With that, and seeing no other councilor in the queue, all in favor of the motion made by Councilor Carpenter and seconded by Councilor Broderick, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Or any opposed? That carries unanimously. So congratulations, Director Reagan.
Thank you.
Thank you. The next item on our agenda is item 6.2. This is the second public hearing regarding the new open space plan, and we will go ahead and open the public hearing on this matter at 7:22 p.m. I will note that we were joined by a number of excellent speakers at our first public hearing, speaking unanimously in support of this matter. And so I was anticipating that we may not have as many folks for the second public hearing, but we do have at least one individual signed up at the moment. Zoe Richards, we have you if you want to come forward here to the table, but when Zoe is finished speaking, we'll ask if anyone else wants to participate in this public hearing. So.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. I'm very excited that we're here. I hope on the brink of passing the new open space plan or adopting the new open space plan. And I just had a few words that I wanted to share, and I'll just introduce myself first. My name is Zoe Richards. I'm a wildlife biologist, and I'm a longtime member of the Burlington Conservation Board, and I also direct the Burlington Wildways Partnership. And we're really excited about this open space plan. And with the passage of this plan, or the adoption of this plan, I'm just here again to make another plug for advocating for investing in our ecosystems and other nature-based climate solutions that are outlined in this plan and in its nature-based climate solutions addendum, something we wrote a couple of years ago. And just as a reminder, you know, unlike a BED that can generate revenue to put towards climate action, there's not a clear path for revenue generation in this field, which is why there's historic underinvestment in these cost-effective approaches to being a climate resilient city. Every dollar spent on urban conservation and nature-based climate solutions returns $3 in avoided damage and co-benefits. This is a conservative estimate from the World Bank. We can't afford not to invest. The good news is we have the Legacy Fund, and recent adaptations to the fund has allowed the city to support some of this work through our granting program. The plan recommends an increase in the Legacy Fund, and I look forward to working with the council on this. And I'm also here, and Scott Guston is here as well from city staff, and happy to answer any questions that people might have. Both Scott and I have been involved in the process of working with the consultants on generating this open space plan.
Great.
Thanks.
Thank you, Zoe, and I did note the presence of Zoning Division Manager Scott Guston as well. I think what we'll do is we'll continue to see if anyone else wants to speak in the public hearing, and then when we close the public hearing, if there's any presentation or other questions from the council, we'll turn to it on the next agenda item. So thank you. Is there anyone else here in City Hall that wishes to participate in the public hearing on the open space plan?
Yeah.
And I will ask online as well, if you're online on Zoom and wish to participate in the public hearing on the open space plan, please use the raise hand function. Yes, could we please promote Pike Porter? Pike, you should be able to go ahead and unmute yourself. Go ahead.
Thanks.
I think you should be able to go ahead, Pike. I see Pike unmuting himself online, but I'm not hearing Pike here in City Hall. Could you try again, Pike? All right, just to make sure that it's on Pike's end and no one else's, Councilor Litwin or Councilor McKnight, could you briefly come off mute so we can see if we could hear you?
Yes, and it does say talking permitted now next to Pike Porter.
Okay, so Pike, can we try once more? It may be a microphone issue on your end, Pike, if you could hear us. Could we try to promote Pike to being a panelist? All right, could you try to unmute yourself once again? I am sorry, Pike. I do see yourself unmuting on Zoom, but we cannot hear you here at City Hall. Just to troubleshoot a little bit more, perhaps on the audio tab on your Zoom, do you need to switch your microphone on your computer? Okay, I do see a written chat from you, Pike, saying that you'll provide written comments. So if you could send written comments to the council, we will make sure it's added to the agenda under the public hearing. So thank you, and sorry about that. Is there anyone else online, or I will say here in person at City Hall, that wishes to participate in this public hearing? If you're online, please again use the raise hand function, or if you're here in City Hall, raise your hand. All right. Seeing no one else, we will go ahead and close the public forum, public hearing on the open space plan at 7:27 p.m., which brings us now to item 6.3, which is a deliberative item on the new open space plan. And as mentioned, I do know that we're joined by Scott Gustin and Zoe Richards. We'll acknowledge that there was a presentation provided at our last meeting attached to the public hearing. I don't know if you had a recap of it or are mostly here for the purposes of answering any questions the council may have, but Scott and Zoe would certainly welcome whatever you have, or if we defer back to the last meeting, that's certainly fine as well.
Good evening. We were here about a month ago and provided a presentation of the new plan at the tail end of this year-and-a-half process. Lots of pretty slides with our consultants, and the sequel is never as good as the original. So I figured we would just rely on that presentation and answer questions if you have any.
Thank you, and thanks as well to the consultants who were here last time and gave a great presentation. I will, in a moment, turn to Councilor Newbeezer as chair of our Parks, Arts, and Culture Committee for a motion on this item. But before turning to a motion, are there any other councilors, or are there any councilors that wish to be recognized on this item? Councilor Bergman.
Sure.
Yeah, go ahead.
So I want to, we're in the conversation of it.
Yes.
Right. And I just want to say, 25 years is a long time to have a plan that's just been there. And there have been a lot of dramatic changes in the city. So it is time that we make this change. And we're talking about housing development, and Lord knows we need it. So the question is, how do you retain the things that are so special about Burlington? And anybody who's lived here for any amount of time knows that this is an incredibly special place. And one of the reasons that it's special is because we've got this urbanness that is linked organically to natural open spaces. You don't have to go 2 hours to go from a very urban place to go and be in the woods, to be on trails, to be by the water. It's very important. And this plan for me is essential as we are really looking to build the city up and out. There was a while ago a legacy plan that called, and it's referenced in here, that I sat around this table as staff when the public went crazy because the projections were to have a 60,000 person city. And the images that people were having was just everything being paved over. And what this does is set a framework by which we can work to really build the city. And we need, I think that 60,000 is probably not an unreasonable amount myself. But it is the way that we do it is critically important. And this provides us a template to work through. And because it's part of what I used to call the master plan, but now I guess is the comprehensive plan, our ordinances need to be consistent with it. And that is where the rubber meets the road with regard to this stuff. So I want to thank you for this work Thank you for protecting places that I love, being in them or just being able to see them from my house. So thank you, and I'll be supporting this.
Thank you, Councilor Bergman. Before turning to Councilor Newbeeser for a motion, yep, Councilor Broderick.
Thank you. Just building off of that, with this plan, I'm very appreciative. Like for a 25-year-old plan, the things that are in here ring painfully true today. So I'm glad that we had the right idea back then. Before I was alive, I was negative 2 years old. But yeah, just the incorporation of modern best practices for urban planning, specifically around densification, reducing sprawl, and creating more environments for people, people-centric environments, and in turn, nature-centric environments. That is how we blend our need for solving our housing crisis, but also including these nature-based climate solutions. There's always the argument of can these two things coexist, and I do believe that that is possible, and I think this plan shows it. So very appreciative of that specifically being in here. But thank you for this plan. I support it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Broderick. Does any other councilor wish to be recognized on this item? Yeah, Councilor Newbeeser, so we'll turn to you for a brief comment and a motion.
I also just wanted to echo my thanks. I think this represents, the open space plan represents one of the things that, or one of the main reasons why I worked really hard to be able to afford to buy a house in Burlington, because I do think there's obviously a climate aspect to this, but really the quality of life aspect for our city and for our residents is so huge. And I don't want to downplay my hometown where I grew up, but I've seen examples where this kind of planning and this kind of conversation doesn't happen, and the thoughtfulness around that doesn't happen, and it really, you can quickly take a city or a town, even of 40,000 people, and turn it into a lot of gas stations or concrete paved everything over, et cetera. So I'm really glad and proud that we live in a community that is taking a different approach. So appreciate all this work. And with that, I will move to waive the reading and approve the new open space plan for adoption by the City Council. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Newbeeser. Is there a second to that motion?
Second.
Second by Councilor Schachter. I do see, Councilor Litwin, you have your hand raised. We'll turn the floor to you.
Thank you. Sorry for any delay on my end. Is it okay to just make a comment quickly about the open space plan?
Sure. I mean, the floor is still open to debate on the item.
Yeah. Okay, great. Thank you. I wanted to thank the chair and Scott Gustin for this amazing report. I revisited it a couple times, and it's a pretty amazing document. One of the things, though, that I just want to flag as a concern that I have is just sort of the ongoing, I guess, complaints and questions that I receive as the Ward 7 representative, which is home to the urban reserve, is what's going on with the urban reserve. And recently we've seen, I'm incredibly empathetic to the houselessness situation we have in Burlington, but we've seen kind of some increased, I guess, refuse and other things going on down there. And so when I look at the report, we talk about the urban reserve and we talk about how important it is for conservation and ecological value. We talk about, that it's a significant sort of open space and natural area that has critical ecological functions, I think it was said. And so I guess my question is, are we looking at the urban reserve and actually treating it the way that we had intended, and finding another way to kind of move folks along out of that space into other spaces we might have that might not be protected in the open space plan, and has the conservation board sort of looked at the urban reserve sort of and the issues going on there? And it's also, I think you described it as a key link between the waterfront and the Burlington bike path, which I agree. So I'm concerned about the ecological implications for the reserve space on the lakefront. I think we'll need to do a big cleanup in spring, and I'm just wondering, where do we go from here?
Point of order.
Sorry, just a moment. Yes, Councilor Newby, sir?
I just respectfully wonder if this is sort of on topic for the agenda item.
Well,
and obviously if city staff want to speak to it, I'm happy to hear that. But
sure. I think, Councilor Litwin, thank you for your point. I do think that to a certain extent this is touched on in the open space plan, but Scott or Zoe, do you have any response specific to Councilor Litwin's comment?
So the houselessness crisis came up a few times in putting the plan together, and it's touched on in 4 spots in the plan, but deliberately doesn't get into details because it's the open space plan. As for the urban reserve, activities there are actually governed by a plan that was adopted in the early 90s, and it was supposed to be updated. I'm going to say it was 2008, give or take a few years. We're well beyond that. So we have an interim management plan that's very stale that governs what happens there. The city's embarking on a comp plan, and I will defer to folks in the Office of City Planning, but it's my understanding that it's at least being considered to address more fully what occurs with the urban reserve, because we are so far past the date of making that decision for an updated plan.
Okay, thank you. Councilor Litwin, you're pretty much at time here, but
yes,
do you
no,
have anything?
thank you.
Okay, thank you. Is there any other councilor that wishes to be recognized on this motion? All right, we will go to a vote then. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Or any opposed? That carries unanimously, and again, thank you very much for your work and presentation. That takes us to item 6.4 now, which is another public hearing, this one regarding zoning amendment 2601, technical amendments and minor revisions. This was warned for a public hearing back in December. I do see that we're joined by Principal Planner Sarah Morgan, and I see online that we're joined by our Planning Director, Charles Dillard. I anticipate that there may be a presentation on this item, but I think before we turn to the presentation, we'll go ahead and open the public hearing. We had one individual who was signed up for the public hearing before the meeting, and that's online, and is Sharon Busher. If we could please promote Sharon Busher again. And Sharon, you should be able to go ahead and unmute yourself. Thank you for being here.
Thank you very much. I have commented before on the item that I'm going to address within the technical and minor revisions amendment. And I'm going to focus the council once again on really in the ordinance lines 155 through 159 and the memo that references this very topic. The issue that I want to bring forward is that the South End Innovation District, as put forward to the public through the whole planning process, was carefully, it was totally supported. I mean, it's a great spot for housing, and most of that section is housing, but there was a conscious and deliberate effort to have the ground floor have access for retail and commercial uses, a mixed use component, which we know is very viable because it allows people to live and stay and maybe buy things in place. They don't have to travel. But it also brings people to that section. So it's a dual purpose. And so I understand that the developers, in the memo, it references that the developers have found that that it's difficult to activate the ground floor retail stores, that the trend is not to do this, to shop online. I don't disagree with some of this, but I also question how accurate and current that information is. Because South Burlington, as I said before, is doing the same thing in their town center, and they have housing and they have retail on the first floor, and that retail is being filled up. And even University Mall, even though it's not as vibrant as it once was, still has stores for people to shop in. I think people do want to actually do in-person shopping, not all online. So the fact that now there is a modification proposed that changes the entryways to accommodate more private entries for allowing the ground floor to be not residential versus commercial and retail use. And I feel that that is really going against what was proposed. I don't see this as a minor amendment. I think that this is a significant change. And I am disappointed that we have changed what we presented to the voters as this is what is going to be accomplished. And now, under the guise of a minor amendment, we are going to change that. Now, does that mean that these entryways wouldn't allow commercial use? No. But we also know, at least my own experience has been that that people prefer to create housing over retail and commercial use. I get that. More guarantee that there will be occupancy and a return on your investment. I get it. But I'm very concerned about this, and I've said it before, but I feel that I just want the record to show that I think this is a mistake. And I am disappointed that it didn't get the attention it needed so that the people who actually came out in support were aware that this change is being made. Thank you.
Thank you, Sharon. I will ask if there's anyone else here in person at City Hall that wishes to participate in this public hearing. And then same online, if you're on Zoom, if you could use the raise hand function. I'll just ask one more time whether on Zoom using the raise hand function or here in person, anyone wishes to participate in this public hearing. All right, seeing no one, I don't know, I think that might be a new chat, Pike, just a note for the record that there may be written comments coming on this. Yes. So I will note for the record that Pike Porter indicated that he will submit written comments, and yes, Pike, if you submit those in writing, we'll make sure that they're attached to the agenda here. And again, sorry for the technical difficulties with your microphone. Seeing no one else, oh, sorry, if we could promote whoever's online is Mr. Goldstein. Mr. Goldstein, if you could give your full name for the record, and please go ahead.
Hi, my name is Daniel Goldstein, live on Loomis Street. I was just curious, I did not read it, so I am not at all prepared to make any real comment about the 87-page, what is this, open space, you know, the clearly years of work that's gone into this plan. To get involved, it says, leave a comment, read the proposed open space, another document. Is there a more specific way to get involved? Is there a reach out contact for, you know, any of that volunteer work, or is there anything for next steps for average citizens to do, or should I just read it and follow whatever is said in that plan? Thank you.
Thank you for that comment. The public hearing doesn't really provide much of an opportunity for us to engage in a back and forth, but I will note that our conservation board in particular on the open space plan put a good deal of work into it, and so I was just looking up the conservation board on the city's website, and there's contact information for the board members on there, and I'm sure they would appreciate hearing from you. Is there anyone else that wishes to participate in the public hearing on the zoning amendment 2601, technical amendments and minor revisions? Yes, Evan Gould. Could we promote Evan?
Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Cool. I just wanted to kind of offer some additional context on the first floor retail. In general, countrywide, a lot of cities have had issues with those requirements because it limits the flexibility in space. And so I do think it's a good idea to keep that amendment in there. And I think it makes sense and it's in line with what other cities have been doing. I think South Burlington is a good example with while they're filling the retail space, some of it, there's still a lot of vacant spaces there. And I know we've had issues in other places with ground floor retail. So that was all. Just a counterpoint to the earlier comment.
If there's anyone else that wishes to participate in this public hearing online, please use the raise hand function. Or is there anyone else here in City Hall who wishes to participate? Okay. Thank you for everyone who participated. Seeing no other hands online and no one here in City Hall wishing to participate, we will go ahead and close this public hearing at 7:47 p.m., which now takes us to the action item 6.5 on this proposed ordinance. And as mentioned before, we are joined by Principal Planner Sarah Morgan, and I will note that we're also joined by Planning Director Charles Dillard online. Sarah, am I correct in assuming, do you have any presentation on this, or?
I do. This is our yearly amendments package. A lot of technical corrections with that minor amendment. I do have slides prepared to go more in depth about the minor amendment. They're similar to what was presented to the Ordinance Committee as well, so happy to present those.
Great. I think you should be, I think you're on as a panelist, so I think you should be able to share your screen now. And I don't know if they are on here now, but when we're done, if you could just share the slide packet with Lori such that we could publish it online, that would be great.
Definitely.
So whenever you're ready, just share your screen and we'll go ahead.
Any minute now.
There it is.
Great. I'm not going to go line by line on the technical amendments or the technical corrections. It's a lot of typo corrections and changes to different references made. We have in recent years done a lot of work overhauling our Article 4 to really align with our housing goals, and that involves several corrections that we've worked with the team at DPI to recognize and shift over. So happy to go through the memo line by line with those, but I do really want to mainly focus this presentation on the amendments and revisions related to the South End Innovation District. I do have Director Dillard online, who is able to provide a lot of context given his involvement in this process and the development of this amendment. But there are two primary actions in this. The first being a clarification to ground level entries. This can be achieved by providing access to a building or by providing access to an interior courtyard or open space. And the second action is releasing secondary frontages from that requirement. And Charles, I don't know, I'm happy to stop sharing or you can jump in with the intent of the amendment if that works for you.
Yeah, sure. Sorry. Can you all hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Great. Yeah, so the intent of this element of the zoning is really to activate the public realm. That is really the purpose of requiring ground floor entries. There are many ways that the public realm can be activated. Having ground floor non-residential uses is one of them. And important, I just want to point out that the zoning doesn't require that those ground floor uses be commercial. They can be any type of non-residential use that's allowed. So I just wanted to point that out. It's not just about businesses. So the zoning has a couple tools that encourage the activation of the public realm. One is the sort of limitation of where parking can be, and that encourages more pedestrian activity. Another is that the block perimeter standard and the building footprint standard, importantly, the building footprints in the South End Innovation, thanks Sarah, those can be at most 15,000 square feet. So that's really going to limit the size and bulk of buildings, and effectively what that does and what it was intended to do. And in fact, what it is doing, likely in the first phase of the South End development project, is encouraging courtyard spaces in the interior of blocks and spaces between buildings that are porous, both to physical movement, but also visually porous and porous for air and light as well. And so the block perimeter standard also sort of limits the proliferation of very long blocks, encouraging more pedestrian sort of activity and spaces for pedestrians to move. And so the cumulative impact of all of these sort of physical standards will be to encourage more activation of the public realm. Importantly, you know, Sarah pointed out, and I think she was maybe going to get to this, is that we were also quite careful in drafting the zoning, not to require more commercial space than might be in demand. I think you heard from Evan Gould, who just spoke about a sort of nationwide glut, and that is true. There are cases like in the center of South Burlington where there has been some success. There's, but what he said about existing vacant spaces is true as well. But we also wanted to acknowledge that the South End itself is already a very vibrant district. There are a number of successful food establishments, beverage establishments, retail establishments, and other non-residential services, healthcare, all sorts of things, doggy daycare for one. And so we wanted to acknowledge that those existed and that this new housing and other uses in the South End Innovation District wouldn't diminish what those uses are already providing for the South End and the sort of character that they have established. We want to create a cohesive South End district, and so requiring more non-residential than what might otherwise be demanded, I think would diminish from that. So that, I think, is just the sort of description of the intent of this standard, again, to activate the public realm. And we're the one other thing maybe I should point out, and sorry, Sarah, I'm sort of bouncing around here, is that in releasing the secondary frontages from the requirement, we acknowledge that those secondary frontages, according to the zoning, can be along open spaces. For example, the barge canal. They can be along rail corridors like exist in the area between Lakeside Avenue and Sears Lane, or they could be secondary streets that are more minor or more residential in character, like Lakeside Avenue. And that requiring non-residential uses along those frontages would really be pushing non-residential uses to places where there otherwise probably won't be much pedestrian activity and certainly won't be much visibility. Visibility is really important, especially for businesses and other services. And so, you know, for example, requiring ground floor entries along the rail corridor would not probably be the best place for a business or other, you know, daycare or other sort of use to be located. So that's the intent. Jumped around there a bit, but Sarah's more than capable of answering any other questions, and I'm here as well if there are any.
And highlight some of the language proposed. So you'll see in section 445C2D ground floor entries, you can see this clarification that at least one ground level entry into a building or interior courtyard or open space, not including service doors, is required every 60 linear feet along a primary frontage. I do want to note that in each site or each applicant, the applicant is able to determine a primary or secondary frontage. There's also the amendment to table 4562, frontage and activation standards, eliminating the requirement for these ground floor entries on secondary frontages. So Charles had touched on the challenges related to retail, and I also want to highlight some infrastructure changes, and I'll show a little bit of what I mean in a moment. But for example, Lakeside Avenue, this is a proposed secondary frontage for the first phase of the Secord project, and it's about 8 feet below the developable portion of that parcel, and the right-of-way width as it crosses underneath that railroad, it would not accommodate a sidewalk. So here's some visuals of what that would look like, and kind of an example of an infrastructure challenge as it relates to ground floor entries on the secondary frontage. And in this scenario, I don't have any of the plans in front of me, but in this scenario, one could assume that along that rail area might be that secondary frontage, Champlain Parkway being primary frontage, concepts like that. This is the table 4562, which you can see on the right of that table, releases secondary frontages from that ground level entry requirement. This is one of the standards in place that would help us answer the question which was posed by the Ordinance Committee of how can we still avoid large expanses of unactivated spaces and streets. So we have the building opening requirement or standard under Article 6, our development review standards related to building openings, as well as that max building size per floor plate that Charles had mentioned in the SEID dimensional standards and density table. Some examples of how we would, in theory, maintain visual interest and physical porosity, two very fun phrases to talk about tonight. In this area, you can really see that the breaks in the building on that right would allow for those courtyards or pathways and just have that porosity across the block. And those are the slides on the minor piece. You will, this was originally going to include some other minor amendments that, including downtown fences, which I think a few of you have heard me talk about a couple of times, which is going to be an amendment before you all, hopefully in the next month or so. Excited to talk about that too, but this was the primary minor amendment that is included in part of this package. So happy to answer any other questions or go through the amendment and answer any questions related to any of the technical corrections.
Great. Thank you for that presentation, and thanks to you and Director Dillard for being here this evening. In a moment, Councilor Bergman is chair of our Ordinance Committee. Could we start with you for a motion on the item? Sure. Okay, great.
I'd move to waive the reading and adopt the ordinance as amended by the Ordinance Committee, and actually ask for the floor back just to talk about the Ordinance Committee's process.
Great. Thank you, Councilor
After
Bergman.
a second, obviously.
And thanks for the work by the committee. Is there a second to that motion?
I'll second.
Thank you, Councilor Barlow. Councilor Bergman, the floor is yours.
Thank you. So staff has really made my job really easy, right? Because they did all the things that I might have had to do, and they've put it in writing in the memo. So I just want to put your attention to the fact that we actually heard from former Councilor Busher on both of the meetings that we had, and true to our process, we looked at all of this, including particularly the questions related to commercial usage in this area very, very carefully, and dealt with this over 2 meetings. I think that the issues were dealt with substantively. These are secondary frontages. They're not the primary. The primaries are still required. We eliminated, or they have proposed to eliminate the requirement, but not the possibility, so that if you get into the courtyard, right, you get into those openings in these smaller buildings, and there is the demand for retail or some other activity, maybe it's a bar or a restaurant, then that can happen inside. In fact, that's probably much more likely than by going in next to the rail tracks, or going along Lakeside Avenue where the dip is, and you've got the abutment and the underpass. So it's not clear to me that, how this all will develop in the area by the Maltex building around the barge canal, So although that's a part of the innovation district, I think actually we're going to have a lot more opportunities as a council to be dealing with that area based just what I've seen in terms of the development issues that are down there right now, given that it's in a Superfund site. So really it is the old GE parking lot that we're looking at, and this makes lots of sense. The memo deals with all of the things that we looked at on page 2 and 3. There are 4 bullets on there that the Ordinance Committee dealt with, and you ask us to look for and pick out the nits, and that's what we do. We have done that on this. It seems to make a lot of sense what's being proposed, and we want to encourage the 1,100 plus units of housing that are going to be built down there, which has really been a real driver in our conversation, at least since it's been proposed since I've been here. So that's it for me. I look forward to a unanimous vote on this.
Thank you, Councilor Bergman. Is there any other councilor that wishes to be recognized on this item? Councilor Carpenter.
Thanks, and I don't want to repeat what Councilor Bergman said, but I do appreciate the staff proactively calling these out and responding to the markets and the need for development. It actually ties in well with our next agenda item of build and trying to really get ahead of what could prohibit or at least slow down development. It's really dynamic. We need to make sure that and zoning is very clunky, which I've come to learn. So I just appreciate our attempt to try to get ahead of what's going on, especially this great particular site. So thanks.
Thank you, Councilor Carpenter. Is there any other councilor that wishes to be recognized? Okay. We will go to a vote then. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Are any opposed? That carries unanimously. So thank you, Sarah. Thank you, Charles. Thanks to our Planning Commission as well, and to our Ordinance Committee for their work on this item.
Thank you all.
Item 6.6 was a matter authorizing to execute the contract with Interface Studio for Plan BTV 2050. For the sake of clarity, this agenda item was removed at the top of this meeting, and so we will anticipate that returning at a future meeting, which now brings us to the last item on our deliberative agenda, item 6.7, resolution, Burlington Unlocking Infill and Livable Development Build. And Councilor Singh, I will turn to you for a motion on this item. Yes, go ahead.
Yes, I'll make a motion to waive the reading and adopt the resolution with the amendment by changing the report back date from CEDO by no later than March 23rd, 2026.
Okay, so Councilor Singh has moved to waive the reading and adopt the resolution posted on Civic Clerk, but with the amendment of changing the report back date to no later than March 23rd, 2026?
Correct.
Okay. Folks understand that motion as read?
And as I don't know what the point is. That is on line 30, just to be clear about where this is, that date?
Yes, that is line 30.
Thank you.
Okay. Is there a second to that motion?
Second.
Thank you, Councilor Schachter. Councilor Singh, do you wish for the floor back?
Yes.
Okay, the floor is yours.
Well, it seems, again, tonight, from the mayor's comments, from planning, from everything that's come in front of us, housing is top of mind for everybody here sitting at this table. So I really appreciate bringing forth this resolution. You know, as my day job, I work in mortgages, and I probably could say there isn't a day that goes by that people don't talk to me about housing, whether it's during the week or on the weekends. And, I would say, what we've done with neighborhood code has been an amazing step to try to unlock density where we can have it here in the city. And I would say all of us have personally experienced when you're renovating or trying to expand, or heard stories of other people that trying to find a contractor or tradesperson to make these things a reality. And a lot of them say they won't work in Burlington. I had a merchant owner who said their brother that's a contractor refused to help him on a project in Burlington because they didn't want to work in Burlington. You know, there are multiple layers at the state level and the local level, and with a lot of appeals that can slow down a lot of the larger housing projects, but the smaller ones too. You know, it's a pretty heavy regulatory environment, especially with permitting and compliance. You know, there's a lot of things in place, whether it be fire and life safety, where it intersects with historical preservation, and that a lot of regular homeowners that we are looking to unlock this don't understand. And I think CEDO is the perfect department to handle this and try to help us unlock what we've been missing. And I would also be remiss not to comment on how the CHIPS program, the state is holding webinars just this week and asking for people to input if they're, you know, registration for funding for housing projects. So I think this is a very opportune time for this city and this council to take this step. I want to commend everybody that's worked on, you know, doing something like this and understanding that this is kind of the low-hanging fruit now for us to get housing. These larger developments take a lot of time, but if we can find a way to create this infill cost-effectively and expeditiously, you know, I think the word Sarah just said about being flexible and dynamic about the last item that we just deliberated, that's what this city needs to be in order to unlock housing. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Singh. Is there any other councilor that wishes to be recognized on this item? Councilor Carpenter?
Thanks. I very much concur with Councilor Singh, and just wanted to comment. I was with the mayor at her budget presentation, and one of the comments was, you know, one of the things we need to do is increase revenue. How do you increase revenue? Properties that pay taxes. And my offhanded comment was we really need to get down to some of the nitty-gritty, that some of the smaller development have bumps in the road. I think that entails bringing together tradespeople and other people in the industry. And, you know, we hear stories, oh, I won't work in Burlington. Well, please tell us why. Be specific. And I hope this is an initiative to really delve into that. We know the CETA has already started that work, so this is not a comment on the fact that that's not front of everybody, but it's to really try to crystallize it and come up with, you know, what concretely, speaking of building, can this council promote, and, you know, what needs to have ongoing study, and try to holistically get it. I get asked a lot, you know, sort of, what are we doing? And part of this, I think, is to bring to the public work that I know we're already doing, but open that discussion for folks, because that we really are open to having people build in Burlington.
Thank you very much, Councilor Carpenter. Councilor Bergman.
Thank you. So first, I want to appreciate the change in date, because what you're asking for is long-term. Anybody who has worked in and around housing for any length of time in the Burlington area knows that the complaints that we've heard about tonight go back, in my recollection, 40, 50 years, right? This is not a surprise. And they did not arise in the last year, but we should be looking at it. The problem that I've got with the resolution, but I will support it, is that it seeks to get answers that are like in 2 months that are not going to come in 2 months, right? And they're not going to come in 2 months whether we go about creating a committee, which, as we all know, takes all sorts of time to get through. So I'm glad that we've got a synergy of the mayor's work with a focus on certain things in the housing development world that we are going to try to integrate. As Councillor Singh mentioned, there are a number of other issues that inhibit the building of housing that have absolutely nothing to do with us. He's in mortgages. There's financing issues that are huge, including, as I heard from a developer, the financing of condominiums, the ability to finance the new condominium buildings. That's exceedingly difficult, and those are happening on a federal and the banking industry's realm. We've got tariffs and the cost associated with building materials. My son is an affordable housing developer, architect in Philadelphia. They've got these issues, there. He's building in Buffalo, is building in Philly, big buildings, and the cost associated with doing the right thing is unbelievable. We've got issues related to not just financing, but the sources of money, and we've got federal programs or federal laws like the Faircloth Amendment that prohibit municipal housing authorities from actually building new housing development. It makes absolutely no sense to me why the federal government would stop that, except for the trickle-down Reaganite approach to building, but that's exactly what happened because it was passed, the Faircloth Amendment, under Reagan, and it continues to this day. So I appreciate the focus on a certain number of things, and we can always we can only deal with what we can deal with, and so maybe these are them. I'm not sure that this list is expansive enough, but we'll see as we do the synergy. And my caution for us, for the public, is that this is a piece. It's not the whole thing. There's not a silver bullet that's going to come out of this, but perhaps we can make it easier to build like we've done with the neighborhood code, because let me just conclude by saying the arguments against development that are made, generally speaking, is that the laws prohibit that from happening like low residential density districts. And we have eliminated that, or we are in the process of eliminating that. Burlington really is saying that we need to build. And to the extent to which this can help us do that, I'm supportive of it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Bergman. Councilor Schachter?
Thank you, President Travers. I'm glad to be, of course, supporting this evening. And also just want to take a moment to say that I think we can all agree that we are facing a housing crisis in this community. It ties back to so many of the issues that we are facing as a city: our affordability crisis, our houselessness crisis, our substance use and mental health crises, and our ability to attract and retain the workforce that we need to power our city. And I really honor and have great appreciation for the work that the mayor's administration, that CEDO and other departments, planning, who is just here, have been doing as well to sort of keep us all moving in the direction of how do we crack this? What can we do that's new and innovative and will be effective in helping us tackle what feels like this mountain ahead of us that we know sort of we have to figure out a way to get onto the other side of it. And I agree that we had, neighborhood code was passed at the tail end of Mayor Weinberger's administration, and that it's now our time to step in, and we've been doing it, and this is another step in that to figure out, so how do we implement it? Where do we go from here? So really, I just want to say, I think this is an important step. Like so many have said, this is about identifying barriers. We're not going to solve these issues. A lot of that work is underway. This is a complement to all the work that's underway already. And so, yeah, I just want to say I really see this as essential and an important step, and working really in close partnership with a lot of the great work that's already underway at the city level. But we've just got to all keep moving forward on this. Thanks.
Thank you, Councilor Schachter. Is there any other councilor wish to be recognized? Yep, I see Councilor Newbeezer, Broderick, and Grant. Councilor Newbeezer.
Thank you, Council President. And I appreciate this, and I think I will vote for it because a lot of the substance on this resolution is moving forward. As we've talked about, I don't want to sour the good vibes on the floor here, but I was actually really disappointed to see this on the agenda, not necessarily because of the substance, but because we've had multiple conversations between our caucuses about what collaboration looks like publicly and privately, right? And I thought we had a shared commitment to, before we bring something to the floor, I've certainly followed this with everything I've brought forward. I call every single counselor at this table before I introduce a resolution and invite folks to sponsor. I've done that with everything I've put forward. Some basic working group commitments I thought we had made, and I just feel like this completely, it doesn't come close to fulfilling what we had agreed on. I didn't learn about this until Thursday. My understanding is that members of city staff, like for example, the director of CEDO, didn't know about this until late this week either. And so while I appreciate that on the substance, much of this complements work that the mayor's already doing and the work of this council in the past, I'm trying to take that at face value and focus on the issues because that is what we're here to do. And I don't just want to bicker. I think residents don't want us bickering. I think they want us focused on collaboration. But it can't just be in sort of acronym-only resolutions. There is, I think, a reasonable expectation and some sort of level of professionalism that we don't always meet collectively, myself included, but we should be aiming for. And yeah, I just want to name that I'm really frustrated by that because it doesn't feel in good faith, and I don't know how else to interpret the resolution and how it was brought forward. So I wanted to name that. That said, I appreciate.
Sorry, Councilor Newbeezer, there's a point of order, so we'll pause for a moment. Yes, Councilor Litwin.
Yes, there was a comment about in good faith, and I see that as a direct conflict of our rules.
Okay. Councilor Newbeezer, I'll go ahead and allow you to finish, but I do think the point has been made.
Thank you. Yeah, and I was just going to say, and I'll wrap up here. On the substance, there is a lot of good stuff here. And so I am all for, and I will always support finding and eliminating unreasonable regulatory barriers. Anything that is not needed, that is getting in the way of folks making improvements to their house, us as a city and as a community expanding housing stock, I will be all for. I don't want to put undue burdens on small business owners, contractors, et cetera. So I think that is fair. I do also want to note, and again, I've said this before on the floor, and I'll keep arguing this, is that we are not going to build our way out of the housing affordability crisis if we only build housing and we only rely on private developers and focus time on deregulation and trying to incentivize private development only. We're not going to get there because we can have SD Ireland build all these new places over at Cambrian Rise and then see some of those units costing, I think I saw online at one point in the last year, a 2 or 3 bedroom for over $5,000 a month rent. So like, who can afford that other than folks who don't live here, incredibly wealthy folks? So again, I know this isn't mutually exclusive, but I want to ground us in that we have to look to the successful models that we've innovated here, that we've underfunded in the last few decades, like Champlain Housing Trust, Cathedral Square, we heard from earlier, Evernorth, et cetera. So that will continue to be my focus, and I will leave it there. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Newbeezer. Councilor Broderick?
Thank you. Given the amendment that was made, pushing the date back a month, I will be supporting this. And if I had gotten it sooner, I would have, and maybe I would have also suggested pushing the date back. Maybe I would have asked to put my name on it, and because I do support this as just one of the this resolution as just another way of information gathering and strategizing and working with the mayor's administration and her initiatives that I'm excited to hear about on Wednesday, in terms of, yes, like unlocking the city. That was the goal of neighborhood code, and the goal to address our housing crisis by not just, in my opinion, not just allowing for new development, but I'm hoping that as we get information, both from this resolution and the information and initiatives that the mayor's office will provide, how can we build housing that, as Councilor Newbeezer said, is affordable to the people who want to live and stay here, especially young people. I personally have ideas, so I'm interested to see where this resolution goes and where the future goes with the housing strategy of the administration. That, again, I'm very excited to hear about. And yeah, appreciate it. I support this.
Thank you, Councilor Broderick. Councilor Grant is the last councilor I have in the queue at the moment.
Thank you. I would also add, I appreciate the change in the reporting date. I will also add to my concern about not having an opportunity to see the resolution earlier. I agree with comments made by my fellow councilors where repeatedly we've had the conversation about what does it mean to be collaborative, especially around resolutions. So to have a resolution that was put on so late without being sent to all the councilors for review and not being sent timely to the department heads who we know are under, in addition to their normal duties, are being pushed to look at the budget much earlier and much more intensely, I'm sorry, I'm getting tired. And so I just continue to feel that this at times is intentional, and it's very difficult to. Point of order?
Yep, sorry, just a moment. Councilor Grant, there is a point of order. Councilor McKnight?
Yes, thank you. According to our council rules, framing the way this was put forward as intentionally trying to not collaborate is impugning motives.
I think it's accurate that comments that are alleging your colleagues are not acting in good faith, or that claiming that there's intents outside of the four corners of the resolution are not appropriate and do impugn the motives of your colleagues. So, Councilor Grant, if there's a way for you to proceed without doing so.
Point of information. So I was speaking with regards to how it made me feel as a counselor representing the Central District. I'm not allowed to speak about that?
No, I think that if you feel that you have not had sufficient time to consider the resolution, that's a perfectly fine topic to speak to. When you question the motives of how your colleagues have gone about bringing this item forward, that's where it potentially runs afoul of our rules. So if there's a way for you to proceed with your comments within those parameters, please do so.
Okay, I will respect what was said, even though I disagree with it. I think that I should be allowed to express my feelings with regards to the resolution being submitted so late, which is a fact. And it was a fact that it wasn't sent to all the counselors. It is a fact that this has been brought up numerous times. We've tried to keep these conversations off the council floor, hoping for a resolution, which has not occurred. That's a fact. I will support this because it is acknowledging work that is already being done. I do believe that we have to be careful in implying that certain things aren't being done. So I do appreciate the updates, and I look forward to the mayor's press conference later this week that had been previously scheduled so that the public and the council will get additional information. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Grant. Is there any other councilor that wishes to be recognized on this item? Councilor Carpenter, before going back to you, I'll just see if there's any councilor that has not been recognized the first time on this item that wishes to be recognized. Okay, Councilor Carpenter, happy to come back to you.
Thanks. I just briefly wanted to point out that one of the major goals of this is really intended to look at barriers for housing development under the neighborhood code. So this is not, I don't see this as an expansive all housing development, but we've really got to focus on the good work already done and what are the simple barriers. And so I just want us to frame the context, and I appreciate just acknowledging for the public that we are going to work on the barriers that we sometimes hear about a lot from constituents. Thanks.
Thank you, Councilor Carpenter. Is there any other councilor that wishes to be recognized? Yeah, Councilor Singh.
I do want to acknowledge the work that Director Kara Anaswala has been doing at CEDO with regards to this item. And, knowing Kara personally from working with her at the marketplace, I know she's a great collaborator with, businesses, merchants, vendors alike. So, I'm really happy that we're putting this forward, and there seems to be unanimous support for it. So thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Singh. Is there any other councilor that wishes to be recognized on this item? All right, I will just note for the sake of clarity that I have had at least a couple conversations with relevant department heads about this resolution. They did offer to be here this evening, but I indicated to them that I didn't think that would be necessary, given that if this resolution passed, we would anticipate them coming back with a much more robust presentation. I also do want to note that the resolution is responsive to feedback that we received from department heads, and as many colleagues around this table have noted here, that it is designed to honor the ongoing work that has been happening here on the issues at hand. And again, if it passes, we'll look forward to having folks here to speak to these items. If there's no one else that wishes to be recognized on the resolution, we'll be happy to go to a vote. We'll try a voice vote. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Or any opposed? That carries unanimously. That concludes our deliberative agenda, which brings us to item 7, which is committee reports. Are there any councilors with a committee report? Councilor Bergman.
Thank you. The Ordinance Committee is going to be meeting this Thursday at 4:30 down in the Busher Conference Room to talk about the UVM housing resolution. I look forward to that being the first of several meetings, and anticipate that the at least UVM administration, I suspect that Champlain will also come, as well as the student union, tenant union, and Director Ward. And We had requested a legal opinion. I have not yet gotten a confirmation that we'll be getting that at that meeting, but hopefully we will. And if we do that, then my intention is to have that in executive session, because that is the smart thing for a body to do. So, but welcome everybody to come and sit in. We keep them, we get a lot of work back and forth from this council to and through the committee back here, but we do that in bite-sized chunks, and so I look to this to be no more than 2 hours, but probably, you know, we'll see how that all goes. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Bergman. Councilor Litwin, do you have a committee report?
I do. I'll be brief, though. The CDNR committee has been so busy that I can't even remember everything we've done in the past few months, but we started in December, just before the holidays. We started a great conversation around regional programs. CAO Shad and the mayor's office was there, very helpful. I think we're all on the same page. We're currently working through figuring out what is a regional program. And some of those things are, you know, required expenses, and some of them are not. And so trying to sort through and make some sense of that going forward. And we'll be continuing and hopefully wrapping up that conversation on this month. But I am confident that we're moving towards our goal of making recommendations, or at least a report back to the council, as we had indicated, and thank the mayor's office for their participation and alignment. And then in addition, we're likely going to be taking up some conversations around graffiti in March. And so stay tuned for that. And I think that's it for now. Thanks.
Councilor Litwin, is there any other councilor with a committee report? Okay. We will turn then to City Council General City Affairs. Is there any councilor that wishes to be recognized on General City Affairs? Councilor Grant.
Thank you. December 15th, we had a marathon meeting, and so we didn't get to City Council General Affairs with public safety updates. So I just wanted to mention, going back to the agenda from the December 15th, 2025 council meeting, the two reports from our police department, our police chief, Chief Burke, and our fire department, Chief Curtin, submitted their monthly reports for December, and I do encourage council and residents to review them. Just some highlights on Chief Burke's report. He did mention that we were down some officers due to injuries. We had 7 officers out due to injuries, and hopefully we'll have an update for that later this month. To verify who's returned. Also on Chief Burke's report, where he's been tracking the top 20 people that are associated with a large volume of incidents in our downtown district. And he's included information now as to if an individual is been referred to the situation table, if an individual has been referred to the new Community Accountability Court, neither or both. And so that's interesting information that we are tracking now as well. We, as of December 5th, were tracking for one of the lowest years recently with regards to gunfire incidents, although I know we had an incident after that date, so we will be getting information for the year as a whole. 2022 was a terrible year for Burlington. It was a terrible year for the state of Vermont with regards to gun violence, and some of those cases have been making their way through our court systems, which some major cases recently resolved. So hopefully people have seen the reporting on that. I wanted to bring to the attention, there was an article in VT Digger on January 7th talking about the special committee on accountability court, and the statistics that they provided were 400 of 900 cases under its purview have been reviewed. I've asked Sarah George, our state's attorney, for additional information on data regarding the court for our next Public Safety Committee meeting. But according to VT Digger, the data that they are reporting was presented by Jay Johnson, the Governor's Counsel, to the House Committee on Corrections and Institutions. Regarding the Burlington Fire Department, the EMT team still continues to respond to overdoses. Those numbers have remained pretty persistent throughout 2025. Once again, early this year, either February or March, we'll get grand totals for 2025. We actually had a number of fires reported in the last month and a half, 2 months. So that is just a reminder to make sure that your houses, apartments have smoke detectors, that batteries, if you need new batteries, check those. Also, carbon monoxide detectors, and families and apartment residents, college students, everybody should have exit plans in case a fire breaks out in your residence. So once again, encouraging everyone to, there isn't the time to go into the full report, so I do encourage people to go back to the February 15th meeting and look for those attachments. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Grant. Councilor Litwin?
Thanks again. I just have one brief announcement for tonight, which is I really want to thank Scott Barker, who's our Chief Innovation Officer, pretty cool title, who also happens to do a lot of the back end work with many of our vendors. And so I just want the public to be aware that there's been a much needed update to See Click Fix, where now if you are reporting vandalism or graffiti, you will see that there is a checkbox now that asks the reporter to indicate whether they believe it's related to hate or bias of any particular groups. I think this is a real win for the long term for Burlington in the sense that, I'm sorry we have to have it, but it will help us collect data that we can use if we need to. I believe we need to have more discussion around, so what do we do with that information? I know that the directors who will get that report will obviously see it and it'll get flagged. And I think that's also important so that our DPW director, for example, or Parks is aware and has a kind of a loose protocol in place, but also so that we can respond and support people who have been directly impacted by such behavior, and we can kind of rapidly respond so that that type of graffiti or vandalism doesn't sit around for days until someone is available to handle it. So I just want to really thank him for kind of just doing that really quickly and us not having to make a whole committee process out of it. And I encourage the public very much so to, if you do see something like that, to please report it. We rely on See Click Fix to help crowdsource so many problems in the city, and this is certainly an important one that deserves attention. Thank you.
Is there any other councilor that wishes to be recognized on general city affairs? All right. That brings us then to the last item on our agenda. I just have two quick but important updates on City Council President Council updates. First, Mayor, I want to appreciate the hard truth that you named at the top of this meeting, which involves the killing of a Minneapolis mother, Renee Good, during a federal ICE enforcement action. As we sit here tonight, as we know, Minnesotans, Burlingtonians, and many others around the country are rightfully outraged by that tragedy. Unfortunately, predictable tragedy. Our city has a long and proud commitment to protecting its people, all of its people, and refusing to be an arm of federal overreach. I want to note that I share your unwavering commitment to that standard. Burlington must and will remain resilient in these times, and I'm sure everyone at this table is willing to partner with you to that end. So thank you for naming that at the top of this meeting. As a total pivot from that, I want to say one other thing, and perhaps it will be to the chagrin of some of my colleagues here at this table, but as she files her last story as a 7 Days reporter from this chapter, I want to salute 7 Days reporter Courtney Lambden for reporting what we said, what we didn't say, and sometimes what we probably wish she didn't notice. Local democracy is better for your work, Courtney, and the work of all of your media colleagues. Whether you like it or not, over these years you've become part of this institution. You will be missed. This is a well-deserved break from Monday madness, and we wish you the best of luck in your next endeavor. So, thank you. Seeing no other business before the council, absent objection, we will adjourn our meeting at 8:42 p.m. Thank you all.